Welcome everyone to Unit 8 and congratulations. This is our last unit for our MIM class. You made it through. This course wasn't easy. We have covered a lot of material. It was a lot of work for Dave and I as well, so we know, but it is so worth the investment. I have grown a lot during this course, and Raina and my kids will tell you that I definitely had my late night writing sessions before our nuts and bolts theology classes. And I am just so thrilled to have gone through this with you. One of the things that made this course so neat was that there have been different entry points for the class. Some of you have been doing just about everything: videos, classes, readings, the lab, Chavruta. Some of you have been keeping up with the videos. Some of you have been picking and choosing what works for your life right now, and you can always go back. For those of you who have completed the course, we want to give you a certificate to acknowledge your work and honor you at an upcoming Shabbat service. We have two levels for the certificate: the basic level and the expanded level. To qualify for the basic class, you need to have kept up with the videos, been to the classes either in person or listening to the recording, have met regularly with your Havruta, and kept up with a majority of the basic readings and lab assignments. It's okay if you missed a few sessions with your Havruta or missed a few readings here or there. The idea is that you were in the game the whole way through. To receive the expanded certificate, in addition to the classes and the videos and the Chavruta, you need to have completed the basic readings and lab assignments, as well as a majority of the expanded readings as well. The expanded readings do not include the book references at the bottom in the Going Deeper sections. Those were just for your reference and for digging deeper if you'd like. We did not do any assignments that you would have to hand in. So we have no way of grading your work. This was intentional. So it's the honor system. The point here is that we want to honor you for your work and effort and investment in the learning that you have done over the course of our class. And of course, it's totally fine if you were only able to keep up with some of the material. The links will stay up and you can go back and work on this over time if you'd like. We made Unit 8 much lighter than previous units. In my experience, as the class winds down, people get tired, and we wanted to give you some time at the end to get caught up from previous units. So what I'm going to do right now is give a quick review of the topics over the whole course in each of the tracks, just so that you can see the big picture. Okay, let's begin with our Jewish Basics topical track. In Unit 1, we covered Jewish identity. What exactly is Jewish identity? In Unit 2, we covered the bird's eye view of the Jewish service and Jewish prayer and the temple. In Unit 3, we moved into Shabbat and unpacked what Shabbat looks like for our Messianic Jewish community. And then we moved into a kind of a subtopic in the Siddur where we walked through the different pillars of the Siddur. We began with the morning blessings in Unit 3. In Unit 4, we covered the basics of kashrut, of keeping kosher and what that looks like. And then in our prayer Siddur track, we went through Pezukei de Zimra. In Unit 5, we moved into the Jewish holy days and focused on the Shema. In Unit 6, we moved into a survey of Jewish texts and the Amidah. And in Unit 7, Jewish life cycle events and Tachanun, Hallel, and concluding prayers. And then in Unit 8, we move into the Jewish value of community. Community is really a Jewish basic, and this is an approach to Jewish life in community. So to put this in context in the bigger picture, these are the basics of Jewish life. We have Jewish identity, where everything flows out of. We have Jewish prayer and the Jewish service. We have Shabbat. We have kashrut, the Jewish holy days, studying and engaging with Jewish texts, Jewish life cycle events, and Jewish community. And now let's move over to our second part of our spiritual practices track. In Unit 1, we covered the importance of establishing a consistent time of prayer first thing in the morning, and we spent a considerable amount of our time unpacking this, and I hope that this has become a daily part of your walk with the Lord. In Unit 2, we discussed the healing power of Yeshua's atonement and how critical his work is in our lives. In Unit 3, we moved into hearing God. We discussed stillness and taking time with God and rest. Unit 4, we continued the hearing God theme. We discussed the 4 ways that God speaks to us in the Bible, and then moved into the power of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit in our lives, and how God speaks to us through the Holy Spirit from within. In Unit 5, we discussed how to learn to discern God's voice from the other voices around us. And then in Unit 6, we moved into the practice of Musar, cultivating inner virtues and ethics and integrity, in Pauline language, the fruits of the Spirit. In Unit 7, we continued with our Musar theme, focusing on specific midot, specific character qualities, and how to engage in some of those in the tradition of Musar. And in Unit 8, we are moving into a topic on living in shared community life. Now moving into our nuts and bolts track, the theological underpinnings for Messianic Judaism. In Unit 1, we covered the 2 comings of Messiah in Tanakh, the different roles that Messiah has. In Unit 2, we discussed the divine human Messiah who also became our eternal sacrifice. We discussed the incarnation and the divine nature of the Messiah. In Unit 3, we focused on the life and teachings of Yeshua in his first century Jewish context and the continuity of the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, into the Besorot. In Unit 4, we continued that continuity into the book of Acts, and we discussed the first Messianic Jews. We focused on Paul within Judaism and took a look at how to read Paul as a first century Jew. In Unit 5, we continued with the early Messianic Jews, this time discussing the Jewish believers in Yeshua of the first 4 centuries. And then in Unit 6, we moved into the Great Divide, how Rabbinic Judaism and the historic church separated and went their own ways, if you will. We discussed the tragic history of supersessionism, of replacement theology in the church. And then in Unit 7, we moved into the healing of that great divide, the twofold community of Messiah. How the community of Messiah is made up of Jewish and Gentile communities who share in a relationship of mutual blessing in the Messiah together. In Unit 8, we will discuss the development of the modern Messianic Jewish movement and the different iterations and different kinds of Messianic Judaism, and where are we headed at Ruach Israel. It is my hope that you have grown in all of these different areas, and that this survey of Messianic Judaism has helped you to mature a bit more in Messiah. Of course, maturing in Messiah is a lifetime journey. Now, let's take a quick look at our Unit 8 packet. Our focus for the whole unit is on community. We wanted to leave you with something most tangible. And ongoing community life is what facilitates long-term spiritual growth and maturity. We are not meant to live out our faith alone. And even those who devote their whole lives to spiritual solitude, if you will, usually actually live within intentional communities committed toward the same goals. They're not really alone. Judaism, of course, is not so solemn, quite to the contrary, and community can be a source of long-term spiritual joy. First, as we continue with our Jewish Basics track in the Siddur, we have actually made it through the entire Shacharit service in the Siddur, all of the pillars over the course of this class. So I hope that you now feel more comfortable with your Siddur. And remember, this is a lifetime of learning. The goal wasn't to become an expert, just to grow. We'll close our class with an overview of what the MJRC, the Messianic Jewish Rabbinical Council, commends as basic practice, and I have a short video on those standards. For our Jewish Basics track, I will walk through a short video on living a Jewish life in community and the value of community in Jewish life, and just a few nuggets and some thoughts on that topic. Then I've posted something a bit different. At this link here is a recording of a paper that I presented at a Messianic Jewish conference called Young Scholars in 2013 on Messianic Jewish halakhic life. It's called Choosing a Healthy Entree, Food for Thought on a Healthy Approach to Halakhic Life. It's not about food, it's about how to orient ourselves within Messianic Jewish community and Jewish living. The recording quality isn't the best, so forgive me for that. I hope to re-record a video of this paper at some point, but I thought this would be nice to post right now. I have also posted the actual paper in the expanded readings, if you'd prefer to read it rather than listen. This talk here was an abbreviated version of the paper, which has more substance and some footnotes and things like that. So you choose whether to listen or read, and you do not need to do both. I wanted to include this paper because I address different approaches to Messianic Jewish life in the Messianic Jewish movement and suggest what we feel like is a healthy and modern Jewish approach. Next, in the interest of making Unit 8 lighter and easier to manage as we close, Dave and I decided to do the next 2 videos as messages during our Shabbat morning service. Community is also a theme in the wider congregation at this time. Dave will be speaking on May 15th, tying Shavuot into community life, and he actually posted a working transcript here if you'd like to take a look at that. And then on May 22nd, I will be sharing the second part of the Ephesians mini-series that we started last unit. This will focus on community. We will post the recordings after the message is given, and again, no need to listen to these twice. And finally, in the nuts and bolts track, as I said earlier, we'll cover the development of modern Judaism, its different iterations, and this, God willing, will be on May 22nd. Moving over to our lab section, we'd like you to give praying the MJRC basics a try, the Shema, the Amidah, and the Aleinu. We have, again, our daily Devar readings updated here. Next, in our lab activities, we have a special activity for community. Do one act that you might not ordinarily do in order to intentionally build community at Ruach Israel. So this might be something like make a phone call to someone to check in, or find a way to bless someone at Ruach. And I want to encourage you to be creative. Make this something that you wouldn't normally do and see how it goes. And then for our Musar topic that we're continuing through the class here, we'd like you to choose a different one of the 4 midot that we discussed in Unit 7. If you remember, in Unit 7, we chose one of these midot to learn about and to practice. And so in Unit 8, we'd just like you to choose a different one and do the same thing. The options here are humility, trust, generosity, and patience. So what you want to do is to read the chapter on your midah in the readings below. You'll see a link to a reading for each of the midot, and choose a practice that's related to your midah, and go ahead and practice. Keep a journal of your progress and talk with your Havruta partner about this. After our MIM class is over, Dave and I are considering starting a Musar class where we can break into small groups and even continue with your Havruta partner that you have here and focus on a different midah each week. The focus of this Musar class would be hands-on and practical, and considerably less investment than our basic MIM class that we've just gone through. Lastly, for our lab, we'd like you to use the MIM overview page where we have all of the different unit packets listed and the class topics listed. That's linked here. And scan over each unit packet document for each of the past 7 units. I don't need you to spend a lot of time on each unit packet. Just kind of look over the different topics and the assignments and the readings and think about the following questions. What topics were most meaningful to me? In what areas have I grown? How do I keep growing? How do I keep maturing in Messiah happening? Is there anything that I missed? And then use this time to get caught up on some of the material from the previous units. I also want to mention that I put the link to a terrific conference that we held at Ruach Israel in 2017 called the Messianic Jewish Luminaries series. We hosted Rabbi Mark Kinzer in a 4-part series. He discusses a new vision for a new generation. He brilliantly maps out the history of Messianic Judaism in the first session, and then he discusses how the changing landscape in the Jewish, Christian, and secular world impact the future of Messianic Judaism. His last session is a profound and, I think, prophetic call for the future. And based on our great discussion at our last class in Unit 7, I thought that this would be a blessing to some of you. So I highly encourage you to check this out. I put it in the expanded section because it's, each session is about an hour or so and might take some time, but definitely worth the investment if you're able. Again, well done. This has been quite an accomplishment, and we are almost through. In the future, we'll be looking for guides to help others through this class, and so we'll be looking for your experience. We'll keep you posted on how that develops in the coming year. Dave and I have lots of ideas percolating for Maturing in Messiah focus classes in the years to come. And we're really excited to continue learning together. As always, let me know if you have any questions, what's working for you, what we can do even better next time, and happy learning, and we'll see you in the next video.